Welcome to the Moms Who Know podcast. I'm your host, Chanel Nielsen, and today we are going to be talking about the power of routines. As moms, we understand the power of routines with our kids, but today I wanted to talk about how routines help us, and specifically some things that I do in my morning and evening routine that have helped me a lot and helped me personally, not as a mom, but just as a human, as a person. They help me to function better. So I wanted to take you back to when I first started my morning routine. This was about 5 years ago. My youngest at the time was 2, and stress was just constant for me. My oldest was 8, my youngest was 2. I had had 4 babies in 6 years and been pregnant or nursing or having a baby for a long time, and just really felt stressed out. It was nothing major. I just felt this constant need to be there for my kids, and this constant stress kind of started to add up. And I'm generally a person who's pretty calm and can roll with the punches pretty well. But at this time in my life, I started to feel a lot more, it was easier for me to get angry, and I would stress out about little things, and I just noticed this change in myself, and I did not like it. And so I took a step back and thought, okay, what do I need to do so that this is not happening all the time, so that I'm not getting so angry and frustrated? And that is when I started my morning routine. So what I do still to this day, what I started to do then, is every morning I wake up and I say my prayers, and then I make my bed if I'm the last one out. My husband and I have a rule that whoever's the last out of bed has to make the bed. So either one of us gets to sleep in, or we're making the bed, or if we both happen to get up at the same time, we'll make the bed together. But anyway, I make my bed just to get it started on the right, just so your room looks nice. And that's a little habit that just takes a couple of minutes, less really, and it makes your room look nice, and it makes you feel like you are already starting off on a good foot. So that's something that I like to do. And then I go into my office, and I have a little sign I made for the door with sticky tack. I put it on the door, and it says meditation in progress. And my kids know that when that sign is on the door, they are not allowed to come in. This is mom's time, and I've been pretty adamant about no one is allowed to come in the room unless it's an absolute emergency. Most of the time they're still sleeping when that sign's on the door, but they've still learned that even when they wake up, if I'm not out there and the sign's on the door, don't come and talk to me, because I am in the office doing my yoga. And I turn on a YouTube video and I do some yoga. And so for some of you, you might be thinking, well, that sounds great if I had the time to do yoga. Well, for me, I make the time to do yoga, but that doesn't always mean I'm doing an hour-long class. In fact, it's very rare that I do an hour-long class. If I only have 5 minutes that day, I do 5 minutes of yoga. There are plenty of yoga videos, you'd be surprised, that are only 5 minutes long. Most of the time, I like to fit in about a 15 to 20 minute yoga video. But if that doesn't happen, if the time's not there, then I do 5 minutes and make the most of it, and then I'm done with that yoga for the day, and I can feel good that I got that in. When I'm done with yoga, I come out of the office and I have all of my study materials in the living room, and I read my scriptures. For other people, this might be other inspirational materials that you like to read, but for me, that's scriptures. I also use this time to study my Chinese. And like I mentioned with yoga, This isn't something that takes me hours and hours. It would be really nice if it could, and I could just study and learn and spend tons of time learning all these things I want to, but that is not my reality. So I just make sure that I open my scriptures. I read as much as I can. I try to get as much from them as I can, but that doesn't always mean that I'm spending a long time in the scriptures. Then I study my Chinese, and same thing with that. I have sometimes flashcards that I'll use, or I have a book that I'm reading in Chinese, and I just make sure to do it every single day. Now, a couple of other things that used to be in my morning routine and now are not because I have a little baby. I used to, when I was doing my morning study, I would get something to drink. So either hot water with lemon, that's really good to stimulate the digestive system, although I've heard it's bad for the enamel on your teeth. So you can go both ways with that one. Sometimes I drink herbal tea. Or something else I really like to drink in the morning is bone broth. I'll just get a cup of bone broth, heat it on the stove, put a little salt in. And bone broth, it sounds like a weird thing to drink, but it's really good for your joints. It's good for your skin. Has all kinds of benefits. And in the colder months, it's really warming and nice to drink. So that's something that I would sometimes do. With a little baby right now, a lot of times I'm holding him or nursing him while I'm trying to do my morning study, and I'm lucky when I get to go sit down and have breakfast, so I've cut that out for now. Someday I'll get back to it, but for now I'm just happy to be able to do my study even if I don't have my drink. Another thing that I would do in the morning is when I was finished with my warm drink, or sometimes before I started, I would do something called oil pulling. And if you haven't heard of that, oil pulling, you just get a little bit of oil. You can use sesame oil, or I personally like to use coconut oil because it has a better taste. You put about a teaspoon in your mouth and you swish it around, and it's very detoxifying for the mouth, for the gums. It makes your teeth beautiful and white and shiny. It makes your mouth feel really clean. And you swish it around in your mouth for as long as you can, up to 20 minutes, which is really hard to do. I think what starts to happen is you start to salivate, and so you get a lot of liquid in your mouth. So that teaspoon turns into many tablespoons in your mouth, and it starts to get a little bit hard to keep it in there. And I gave that habit up when I was pregnant and had morning sickness, and I just could not do that anymore. But someday, again, I will get back to that one. Because of the oral health benefits. That's something that I really like to do. So those were two things that used to be in my morning routine and then are not anymore. So my total time for my morning routine is about a half an hour from when I get out of bed until I've done those things. And then I get going with the rest of my day. I get ready, I brush my teeth, I eat breakfast, make my kids breakfast, all those things that I need to do before we get going on our day, getting the kids off to school and other things like that. In the evening, I have a separate routine. And in the evening, probably like most of you, I wash my face, I tone and moisturize every night. And then I have another part of my routine. I brush my teeth, also like most of you, and I have a toothbrush that has a timer on it. And this timer, the way that it works, it's an Oral-B Sonic Care, so some of you may have the same toothbrush. When you press the button, it will give you a little buzz at 30 seconds. The toothbrush buzzes and you know you've gone 30 seconds, so that you do each quadrant of your teeth and you're brushing your teeth for 2 minutes. That used to feel like a really long time to brush my teeth, and so I decided I wanted to make sure that I got those 2 minutes in, and I added to that routine by doing a wall sit. So what I do is when I turn my toothbrush on, I sink against the wall and I do a little wall sit for 2 minutes as I brush my teeth. And it's been really fun because after 2 minutes, my toothbrush gives me a little smiley face, and I really start to feel that wall sit, especially if I'm sinking down nice and low like I try to do. And my thighs are burning and my teeth are getting cleaned, and then my toothbrush gives me a smiley face, and I feel really good that I have done that. So my little bit of bonus exercise as I brush my teeth in the evening. Then after I get in bed, so this part happens once I'm in bed. Right next to my bed, I have a little notebook and a pen, and that notebook is my gratitude journal. And in my gratitude journal, I just write things that I am thankful for. And this is something that's very simple. It's not writing paragraphs about my day. I try to write 3 things a day that I'm thankful for. Sometimes I go on and on. There's so many things to be grateful for. And sometimes I say, I'm thankful that I get to try again tomorrow. One thing that I try to do in my gratitude journal is to be really specific. And so I'll read a couple of entries just at random. I'm thankful I went to the pumpkin patch with Trevor today and that he had a good time. I'm thankful the sweet and sour chicken turned out good tonight. I'm thankful that Ginger complimented me today. The next day, today I'm thankful that we had a good, cheap dinner that everyone liked, black bean burritos. I'm thankful that new people are liking my Facebook page. I'm thankful we have food and money to buy it. I'm thankful for unexpected opportunities to serve. So those are just a few little things that I'm thankful for. And the process of keeping a gratitude journal is something that's actually really cool, because what happens is as you start to think of your day and think of those good things and the things that you are happy about and the things that you're grateful for, they come to you more readily. And there's been lots of studies done about gratitude, and gratitude is really something that makes us happier. I have a quote in my office that says, "Gratitude turns what we have into enough." I love that. Gratitude is something that I try to cultivate in my life, and this gratitude journal is one way that I try to do that. And then to finish off my evening routine, I say prayers, personal prayers, and then my husband and I have a couple study and couple prayers that we do together. So that is my morning and my evening routine. And now that I've covered the what of my routine, the things that I do, I want to talk a little bit about the why of my routine. So why have this morning and evening routine? And for me, the big reason why I have this routine is best described in an analogy, and it's actually an object lesson that I've seen done before. Since this isn't a visual podcast, I'm just going to describe it to you, but you'll get the same idea. So I want you to imagine there's a large jar in front of me, and it's empty. And next to this jar, there are 3 bowls full of different objects. The first bowl is full of rocks, about the size of what you could hold in your fist, so maybe about the size of a jawbreaker. The next bowl is full of smaller rocks, pebbles ranging about in size, about the size of a marble, maybe a little smaller. And the last bowl is full of sand. So sand, of course, we know is tiny, tiny, tiny little rocks. So these are all rocks of varying sizes. Now, I need to put all of these little rocks into my jar. So if I start with the sand and pour it in, the sand will fill up about half of the jar. Then if I pour in the pebbles, those pebbles are going to go almost to the top. If I try to put the bigger rocks on top, then there just isn't enough space. If I do it in this order, there's not enough space. Now, let's say we do the same thing, same jar, same different size rocks, but we do it in a different order. First, I'm going to put in the big rocks. then the pebbles, and lastly, the sand. What happens when you do it this way is, of course, that you can picture it in your mind. The sand is going to kind of fall around the big rocks, fall around the pebbles, and fill it in. And it will fit in that jar just perfectly. There won't be any extra space, but it will all fit in there. Now, what this analogy means is that if we do the most important things first, the other things will fit into our lives. And I've seen this in my own life. I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that the reason that I started my morning routine is because I was feeling really stressed out, because I wasn't taking the time that I needed to do the things that were important to me. And those could be considered the big rocks. For me, those are a relationship with God. That's something that is important to me, and I needed to take the time to do that. I needed to take the time to breathe. And yes, yoga is a physical practice, and I really like it for the workout aspects. But just as important to me is that time to breathe deeply and to slow down, because life with 5 kids gets kind of crazy. And so it's very important to me to take that slow down time every morning. Anyway, those things that I described to you in my routine are those bigger rocks. Once I have done those things, all the pebbles, which you could say are the things like doing the dishes and doing the laundry and vacuuming the floor, the sand, which are things like answering phone calls, bringing in the mail, all those little tiny things that we do every day, those get done. But if you do it the other way, if you take care of everyone else's needs, all those little things, all day long, then what happens is those rocks, those things that are important to you, don't get done. And so I have discovered that making those, the things that are important to me, making those my priority, really changes my whole day. It changes the trajectory of my life. And that sounds like very lofty and like something so small wouldn't be able to do something so big. But the reason that it's able to is because of the power of consistency. And that is really what a routine brings to my life, is consistently moving forward in the things that I want to do. And that's the power of routine. I can see this in all of the little things that I do, but just to give an example is with my Chinese study. Now, if I wanted to try to carve out time in my day randomly throughout the day, oh yeah, I need to study Chinese, but not have a place for it in my day, it would be very easy to put it off and to say, oh, I'll do that later, or oh, it doesn't really matter to me that much, doesn't matter today, but it does matter to me because it's something that I want to keep up. I speak Chinese and I want to keep that up. And consistently having it in my mind every morning really helps me to study and learn and become better at my language skills. And so that is the power of routine. The other thing about routine that's amazing is we can really start small with your routine. Just doing a little bit every day is really going to add up. Greg McKeown, who's the author of the book Essentialism, which is an awesome book, said something that I loved. He wanted to journal every day. He wanted to write in his journal. And so he started by writing one line in his journal. That seems crazy, right? Like when I want to start something new, I want to go all out and I want to write a page in my journal and I want to tell everything that happened in my day. But as you may know, and I certainly know from experience, we get burnt out when we start like that. So he said the key to starting a new habit is to do less than you want to do and leave yourself wanting more every day. And I think this can be applied to anything that we want to add to our routine. So start really small. I mentioned that my yoga might only be 5 minutes, but it is routine that makes it powerful because I do that every single day. And that little bit every day gives me those benefits I need. So my challenge for you today is to take a look. Maybe you have an existing morning and evening routine. Maybe you don't. If you don't, my challenge is to ask yourself, what would make a difference if I were to add it to my day? If you already have a routine, to check it out. Does it need a little tweaking? Is there something you could do to make that routine just a little bit better? And so after you've asked those questions, put something into practice that is very small. Just a couple minutes. It doesn't have to be lengthy in time. It doesn't have to be anything huge, but this little thing over time will make a difference. So that is my challenge for you today. And I hope that that's something that makes a big difference for you. Visit me on my website and let me know if that's what your new morning or evening routine is going to look like. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Subscribe to Moms Who Know so you never miss an episode. And join the conversation on Facebook at facebook.com/Moms Who Know podcast.